In the past, we've looked at how fairy tales can act as great inspiration for your writing. How tapping into these oral stories allows you to better understand the stories that really grip us and last for generations. But there are also stories that last even longer than those, stretching back thousands of years into the collective subconscious of most people. Stories that share patterns across cultures, pass symbolism through time, and help us truly understand the most complex and abstract parts of being human. If this sounds a little bit heavy, well, it should. All stories are essentially some sort of reflection of the human experience and an attempt to help people make a little bit more sense of the world and societies around them. The best stories help us navigate the world, teach us valuable lessons, and communicate something intrinsically human to us through the medium of storytelling. After all, humans are narrative-focused creatures. We are constantly drawn to hero myths, whether that's Hercules or the Marvels. We like to see those grand narratives of good versus evil play out. It's a huge reason for the popularity of superhero movies, whether we know it or not. As this is so important, it's therefore quite useful to understand the oldest of these stories that still exist thousands of years later after their conception and can still inspire us as much as the most modern tale. When we read ancient stories of mythologies like the escapades of Odysseus in ancient Greece or Queen Himiko from ancient Japan, we get a glimpse into the mindset and interests of the people of the time. This can be very valuable for knowing if we're writing a historical book, but what if we're writing something set now? How can these stories help us? Simply, they help because they are incredibly deep works of art. Despite how simple they may seem to us compared to the complex narratives we get in modern times, ancient stories and mythologies all served deeper purposes. The fact is that because ancient people had a more primordial scientific understanding of the world, they used stories to explain all the phenomena and the feelings that they weren't necessarily able to express articulately, either because they lacked the linguistic complexity to frame them, or because they didn't have the resources to discover them. In modern times, we understand the theoretical, practical, and symbolic importance of eyes as symbols of seeing, perception, and wisdom. We can explain this fact with intricacy and detail. Ancient people knew this too, but expressed it through story to convey the same meaning. Look at ancient Hindu, Egyptian, or Mesoamerican architecture to see that this symbol has existed for thousands of years and was expressed through narrative rather than description. Ancient people saw the threats in snakes across all cultures. They knew the value of knowledge and gold. They understood the role of the hero and which sort of monster would terrify us most. These people were closer to living mythological lives than we were, and fought with the very demons and dragons that we watch on screens now. They may not look the same, but the horror of facing those challenges was very real back then. The stories that emerged out of the universal human experience and the knowledge that they can impart are deeply embedded in the ancient tales so many people have forgotten. These are the conditions that humans spent thousands of years in before now, and they used their stories to prepare the next generation to be stronger and face coming threats while protecting what was crucial. And it's why Harry fights the basilisk, why we are stirred by conspiracies involving all-seeing eyes, why we fear the unknown shadows that lurk in our home, why things that slink under the water still frighten us, why we salivate when watching cartoon food, and why we are so compelled to fight the dragon. Ancients found and expressed these very real elements in all their old stories, but did so creatively, and in such memorable ways that we still retell the stories today. The symbolism in ancient stories is such a great resource for telling our own compelling tales, but also for making sure the symbols and representations within our narrative reflect the universal human experience. It is exactly what all the most successful stories tap into, now and before. You should make efforts to learn the stories of our ancient ancestors so that you can create the most compelling stories in the present.